Hi guys, this is the 11th video of the React and Golang to-do application project series. So I was not working on this series for a while, and I know a lot of people have been waiting for this. The reason is that this laptop of mine, which is an Alienware laptop, it's a complete Ubuntu machine, and it doesn't work really well these days somehow. And so instead of setting up the whole project on another laptop, having the exact React version and Node.js version and all those different things, I thought, why not just wait for this to start working, and then I'll continue the series. So and I was on vacation, so I didn't have access to this laptop. So now that I'm back, so I'll start continuing to work on this series, and I'll try and finish it. And there's been a person, a developer, Abdullah Karaman, who's been after me to complete this series. So really sorry, man, really sorry I've not been able to work on this, but now I promise I'll finish this off, and I'll try to finish the other series as well quickly. All right, so here in your to-do list file, you also want to have your onChange function, right? So I'll have an onChange. We'll use it in a while, but for now I'm just creating it. So whenever there's a change, so we want to set the state. So I know it won't make sense right now to you and as to why I'm creating this function, but just wait for a while and everything will make sense. So here we'll say event.target.name, and we'll have event.target.value. So this is my onChange function. So this was the only thing that was remaining here, and now we'll come back again to our render function, and we'll start working on our render function, right? So in our render function, we had created this placeholder form, but inside the form here we'll create some JSX, and it'll be basically our button. So we'll say button create task, and here we'll have our div. So right now I'm just keeping it commented out. We'll do something here, don't worry. So here in our div, we'll have a class name, which is row, and a card. So we'll say card.group, and I'm going to map out this dot state dot items. All right, so we're basically just showing a form which will have a type and name, and it'll have an onChange property, and this onChange function I've already defined right now with you, and it'll have a value. So the value will be the state of dot task, right? So that's the value that will be passed, and it'll have a placeholder called create task, and the form is closed. And then we'll have a row which will have card groups, which will basically show all the other tasks to us, right? So this dot state dot items have been mapped out here. Now comes the most important part. All right, now we'll have to create functions for on submit out here. So we'll have an on submit function. Then we'll have a get task function to show the list of all the tasks. Okay. Then we'll have our update task function. And our undo task and delete task. Sorry. Okay. And that's about it. So these are all the functionalities that we require for a to-do list to start working properly. So now let's work on the get task function, because that's the easiest, obviously. So for get task function, we'll have an arrow function, and here we'll use the Axios library, and we'll use our endpoint, which we've already defined here. Endpoint is localhost 9000. So we'll call that endpoint. So we'll say plus/API/task, which is the exact route that we want to hit. And after hitting it, we'll say .then the response that we get. We'll do something with that. So if the response that we have received, the data of that exists, there is some data, then we'll set our state right? And now we want to set our items, right? The items that we're going to map here, which are basically the tasks, the individual tasks. So you will say response.data dot map out each of the items. And color will be equal to yellow. So I'm going to define style here itself. We'll have a word wrap. And we'll also check the status of the items. So if item.status exists, there is a status. Then color is equal to green. Style. So here you can also check if the status is true or false, right? So style, we'll have text, decoration, line through. Okay, and we're going to return something from here, right? So we'll have return. We'll have a card and a key. So we're now defining the internals of the card, as in how the things need to be mapped out. So we're passing the item ID, the color, and we'll have a class name which we'll use later on for some styling. And we'll close this tag. Inside this we'll have some content in the card, so we'll say card.content, card.header, text align is equal to left, and div style create a div here and just map out item.task. Right, so you're just going to have each card, and each card will have a particular color, based on the status, and you'll have a style also, and you'll have an ID, right? And so we want it to be left aligned, and we want the style to be put onto it. Style, let's say if the task is completed, then we want a line through, right? We want it to be completed, so that's why we want to apply the style here. And the item task will be displayed there, right? So far everything is, I think, very, very straightforward. There is no complication here. If you're finding it difficult to follow along, do comment in the the comments below, and I'll try and help you out. So here I want an icon to be present. The name will be check circle, color will be blue, and I'll have an on click this dot update task. So update task function we have to create. All right, so check circle is basically you want to tell that the task is complete or not, right? So that check circle will be blue in color, and then you want to update the task if this check circle is clicked on. And I don't need to have another icon like this. I can just close this right here. All right, and I'll have a span here, padding right 10, and I want to write here undo, right? So if the task is completed, you can undo it as well, and then it will become a task that's not completed. And here we'll have an icon, they'll have a name, delete, color will be red to delete the task. And if you click on this, you want the item to be deleted, so you'll call the delete task function with the item ID, the ID of the item, so that it can call the relevant function in the backend. So that's your icon, and then you'll have a delete pairing rate is 10. If you ever get confused, just look at the project demo that I'd shown you in the beginning of the video. Then everything will make a lot more sense, right? If you ever get confused. So here's the delete text for the button, and now you just ensure that you have closed all the tags correctly. Card.meta, card.content, card, and let's put semicolons here, comma here, and put a semicolon here, and here you can have an else statement. This dot set state items, comma, put a semicolon here, put a semicolon here as well, and here as well. Now your function is complete, and now we're just left with 3 different functions: update task, undo task, and delete task, right? So in our get task, we have seen how all those functions are getting called, and now all we have to do is just define these 3 functions quickly. So let me work on update task, which is quite straightforward. You pass an ID to it. As you can see here in your update task, you pass the item ID, right? So that's the ID that I'm catching out here, and I'll do something with that ID. So I'll say axios dot put. So you already know that for updating something, you have to call the put method, right? So, and we already have the endpoint of the backend /API/task plus ID is what you'll need. Plus ID, because for that particular ID of item, you want to update that item, right? Which will be either complete or undo. So for headers, you'll say content type application /www/form-url and coded, comma, put a comma here, and here you'll say dot. Then after calling this function, you'll receive a response. Right now you want to do something with that response, so you'll say, you're just consoling it out, so you'll say console.log the response, and you'll call the method this.task get task. So now what this dot get task, after you have updated the task, what this does is it calls all the tasks from the database, this complete function, right? So every time you update something, it calls the this dot get task again, so that all the tasks with the latest statuses are shown there, as in if they're complete or they're not complete, whatever. So that's why it's important to call this function after updating your task. Now undo task, you know why it's called, because if the task was completed and you want to undo it and you want to make it a regular task to be completed again, so you'll undo it and then it'll become a regular task which won't be the status of which won't be completed. So axios.put, you already have the endpoint, and the API is undo task, and you'll have the ID for it as well. Here you'll set the headers. I think I'll bring it to the next line. Put a comma here. So the headers are content type application slash x dot form dash URL encoded, comma here, and you'll have dot then, and response will be, so you'll console out the response just to be sure. And again, after this you'll call the get task function. So whenever you update something or you undo a task, you will call the get task function to make sure that all the latest tasks with the latest statuses are shown again to the user, so that he feels like everything is getting refreshed again. Now delete task function is again very simple. Only after I fix my arrow function. Yeah, so for delete task you'll have axios.delete, and you will have your endpoint plus API slash delete task plus ID, comma, headers. So for the headers you will have content type application slash x www dash form dash URL and coded. Okay, and after you call this function, you want to do something with the response. Which will be basically console.log. You'll log out the response first, and then you will again call the get task function, so that after this task is deleted, this doesn't keep showing up in the list. All right, so the user sees the updated what do you call it, the user sees the updated task list. So with this, I think we have kind of done all of the functions. Let me take a deeper look. Component red mount is there, on change is there, on submit is there. Yeah, on submit is remaining. Yes, so that's a big function. Not as big as get task, but it's still quite substantial function. So let's work on our on submit function, which is the last function. After which we'll I'll just change a little bit CSS, and then we're ready to start testing our project. So here we'll have let task is equal to this dot state, and if task is there, so on submit, if you're not if you've not figured it out yet, on submit is basically create task, right? So you have get task, you have create task, you have update, undo, delete, right? So on submit, when you fill the form, you are just basically creating a task in the backend. So the create task API will be called. All right, so post, and for post we have our endpoint plus slash API slash task. The post method, as you already might know, is for sending something to the backend, like a post request, which ends up creating your task. So you've sent your task, you've sent your headers with the post request. Here you'll have content type, application will be x dash www dash vom dash URL and coded, comma. All right, so you'll press enter here, put a comma. Okay, so after this bracket, right, the one that's the round bracket, firstly just put a semicolon here, and after this round bracket, what you'll do is you'll say dot then, and similarly how we've been doing with all the other functions, we want the promise resolved, and then this we want to do something with the response after the API has been called. So here's how we're going to do it, right? And here we'll call get task function, and we'll also have to set the state. So we'll set the state class becomes empty because the form has been filled, right? We don't want the old task to be lingering around in our state, and we'll console out the response. You can put a semicolon here, and formatting needs to be sorted out. Let me take this here, and bring this here. For the formatting purists amongst us, I've sorted out the function now. So this completes our to-do list.js file. I need to do a little bit of work here in the app.js because this is the standard app.js that works on the logo of React, which we're not doing that here. So what I'll do is I'll just remove this completely, and I'll add some really basic CSS, completely optional. If you want to do it, you can do it. And I'm sure you're much better than me at CSS, so you'll be able to add even better CSS. So I'm just adding some basic stuff so that it doesn't look really bad, right? Based on my understanding of CSS, which is very low. Background color is. You can completely skip this part if you're getting bored, as in many people, they don't like working on CSS because they think you're here to learn React and Golang. So many people don't appreciate learning CSS, but sometimes, but some people want to learn the whole full stack, so they're fine doing this. So whatever your taste is, you can either skip it or you can make the CSS even better than what I'm doing. So you'll have text align at the header, which will be at the center always, and at the row, which is row, as you already know, I've given it the class to the to those individual tasks. That's the row for me. So for that, I'll have a padding bottom of 50 pixels. So let's do a complete check of the entire project, and then what we'll do is we'll try and run the project. So we have kind of completed all the functions in the front end and back end, and now the only work that's remaining is testing the project and then finding out errors and fixing them. And since I'm running slightly short on time, in the next video we'll have to tackle that part. So what I'll do is I'll take your leave for now, and don't worry, the last part also I'll create very quickly, as in maybe tomorrow or day after, something like that. So but right now from my side, this whole project is complete. All the functions are done, everything is done. Only fixing the errors is what's remaining. All right, so thank you so much for watching this series, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you.